everybody, we are back.
Did you just record your burp?
Everybody, I'm cutting a burp. I'm cutting the burp.
You're cutting the burp?
At the beginning, and nobody knew that I burped.
I mean, now they do.
I'm cutting that too. Hey, hello everybody. Welcome
Don't cut
to a new
your nice
episode.
song.
I'm listening to me. We are back for a new episode of How I'm Listening.
Wow. What if I just talk really
like
slow?
Wow.
No.
Then we could fill this whole episode with just 10 sentences. That would be actually super annoying.
That would be awful.
People could speed it up.
Yeah, and then maybe it would sound kind of normal.
Right. That could be fun. No, we're not doing that.
This episode, you must put the speed up to
1.5.
1.5 or 2.
Yeah. I'm still coughing, everybody.
Me too.
From the COVID I had.
I didn't have COVID, but I had a cold that was really bad, and I had a cough.
But it's getting
the
good.
cough won't go away.
I feel like 2-3 days and then it's gone. It's my hope.
I think so too, because mine's almost gone. But
Yeah.
if I talk for too long, then it starts.
It's funny, yesterday when I did the podcast, I'm doing another podcast, everybody. But yesterday I talked and I think I had to cough once.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was because the Coke that I just had is fizzy and that makes my...
Mm-hmm.
I think that was not the right choice. So I'm having water right now and that makes it much better. So, okay, what are we talking about
Who would have
today?
thought?
Yeah.
We are talking about mental health.
So the thing is, we had a lot of episodes before where we talked about health anxiety, social anxiety, relationship anxiety. Trauma.
Hey, Jinx, you owe me a Coke?
I just had it. Depression, stuff like that. And we talked about aspects of how it makes us feel, but we never really, or we did also talk a little bit about what helps us or how we cope with it. But I think it would be interesting to just focus on that, like how we recognize when we feel like, okay, anxiety is creeping up or depression, stuff like that, and how we cope it, how it makes us feel in the sense of how we maybe react to certain things differently. Mm-hmm. And also in the relationship aspect of, like, you know, your partner maybe picks up on those things, and at least for me, sometimes I don't even recognize it, and Danielle is like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, I'm fine.
I always know when something is like bothering you, or you're like, I don't know, when you're kind of off. Sometimes you don't recognize it, or you don't want to acknowledge it, even though you recognize it.
Yeah.
And I always recognize it.
And yeah, so I thought that would be interesting. So if you are not interested in that, then turn off the podcast. But please subscribe and share the podcast. No, but I think it's interesting for me. For example, let's just dive into it right away. My main struggle, I would say, are still like depressive states or phases in my life, and also anxiety. But usually those two things come in hand. And I've noticed that seasonal depression, in terms of like in wintertime, especially when it's dark very soon, it's cloudy,
Mm-hmm.
there's no sun, I tend to feel it heavily or more heavier, which not always applies to every winter or every dark day. Obviously, it's not every dark day where I feel like that, but yeah. So the way I feel it, I'm starting to procrastinate, mm-hmm. and I'm starting to get very like, I don't know. I don't want to say sluggish or like
lethargic.
Yeah, I don't want to say lethargic, but I'm demotivated, where I feel like I want to do things, but I just can't do things. Like I mean, it's kind of similar, I guess, to like a creative block or something, mm-hmm. but it stems from a different source. And it's very hard for me to do things that are actually productive in those states versus to just, maybe watch a movie or play some games or something that distracts me.
I mean, sorry. Like a telltale sign for me when you're feeling anxious or feeling depressed or feeling, just dealing with any of that. Telltale sign is when we're watching a movie, no matter if I picked it or if you picked it, and you're on your phone the entire time.
No, I agree. That's definitely
and
a thing.
Even when I say, hey, put your phone away, you're like, yeah. And then you just keep doing it. And then 5 minutes later, you're back on your phone. So it's like you have this like compulsion where I don't know if it's, compulsion, I guess is the best word.
It's not all, it's also partly, I definitely have some sort of addiction towards my phone. As a lot of people do.
But I think it's gotten better over the years.
Yeah, the thing is I know how to handle it. And the thing is I don't like doing that. I hate it because it's like, what's the point of watching something if you're not watching it? And it's also like a stupid thing. You're kind of wasting not only time, but also energy. Like you're actively wasting energy that goes out of the window because you're not paying attention to something that you should pay attention to. Yeah, but that's definitely a sign. But for me, it's sometimes then very hard to recognize it, where I might feel like that or I might feel it already, but I'm not actively aware of it. And it usually takes me a couple of days to recognize it, and then also maybe get not a couple of days to actually know why I'm feeling like that. And yeah, it also has to do with work for me a lot, where in my self-employment, I have obviously the weeks or month where not that much is happening, and where I have more time to think about stuff and can't keep myself busy with my work. So I tend to overthink more, which then it maybe puts me in an anxiety state or a depressive state where I feel like, okay, is this the end of the rope? Is this, where I have to close my business because it's ending? Yeah, stuff like that. And what I wanted to say, what the whole point of the whole rambling is that, I already said it, that I don't have a drive anymore. Usually that's my main thing. There's no drive in actually doing something. I usually have a lot of ideas, but I am not able to put them out. And I have not been able to put out something since we are done building. I have so many ideas. I wrote some things, but I just can't bring myself to actually sit down and do something.
Yeah. I have to say I've been really lucky. I think luck is the best way to phrase it, because I had that like really, really bad period of anxiety from
bad period.
All periods are bad periods.
That's true.
I had this like really bad period of anxiety where it was like, you were there, but we talked about it on the podcast. One of the first times we talked about it was I was still in the thick of it, quite honestly, because even the topic itself was so triggering. The relationship anxiety. Yeah. I had a really hard time getting through that episode because I was anxious while I was talking about being anxious. And I kind of figured out a lot of shit about myself throughout that process, and I figured out a lot of ways to how I can cope with it. But
let's not talk about the coping yet.
I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
But I don't know, I feel really lucky because it's all of those coping mechanisms, they stuck with me so much and they changed so much within myself that I can't remember the last time I had crazy anxiety. I have had a day or two here and there where I'm like, ooh, I'm feeling anxious. When I was sick, I was sick and I had this cough for so long. I still have it, and I've had this cough for 3 weeks now. It's finally almost over. But there was a short period of time.
Period. Sorry.
There was a short period of time where I remember I texted you because I was feeling I don't know where you were. You were working. I was working. And I texted you just feeling I was really anxious. And I thought that I had some disease or something. Maybe I'm coughing because it's something else. And, every time I coughed, I kind of felt like felt the pressure in my head when I coughed. But I think it's just because I was coughing so much.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was like, oh, I have a brain tumor. You know, like that's what I went to. And yeah, but that passed quickly. So I cannot remember a time when I have been like the last time that I was so anxious that it stuck with me for so long. So I feel very lucky in that sense. I mean, I also know that I did the work to make that be the case. But so it's hard for me to also contribute and say like what I feel when I'm anxious. Like I know that the only thing I really know for sure is that I have like absolutely spiraling thoughts, like non-stop, where I can't sleep, I can't do anything else, or if I do something else, like if I'm massaging or something and I'm crazy anxious, I'm just like, what if this? And then that leads to, okay, but if this, then that. And if this, then that. You know, it's like this
what
whole
I can tell when
cycle.
you're anxious, you're very sometimes short with me, and you're very quick to being annoyed, or not
That's
annoyed,
true.
but frustrated.
That's true.
I would say more frustrated than annoyed.
Can you think of a time like recently where that's been the case?
I mean, with the whole stuff we just went through, there were some aspects where you were very short on temper.
But that was not anxiety related.
Right. I just want to say I don't know if it was anxiety related, but other than that, not really, no. But yeah, that's the thing I can tell when I do something that usually doesn't trigger you or annoy you, then and I know, okay.
I mean, I think we can say it on the podcast.
What do you mean?
Yeah, what we just went through.
That's fine. We don't have to say it right now. I don't think it's not the time yet. But we're fine.
We're fine.
Yeah. But what are the coping mechanisms for you where you feel like you do that and it gets better?
The thing that helped me the most was, and it's super, super annoying in the beginning, like super annoying. But if you stick with it, it's super helpful. At least it was for me. But I had a notebook with me at all times. All times. Yeah. So it was a small enough notebook that it wasn't annoying to carry around. Like it could fit in my purse. And I always had a notebook and a pen. And that was my anxiety journal. And the only thing that I wrote in there was every time I had a thought, like an anxious thought, a negative thought, whatever. Anytime I had a thought like that, I would go into the notebook, write down the time, the date, the time. The time was super important for me. Then I wrote down the thought, but you only allow yourself to write one sentence. You do not get to go into this 3-paragraph thing of like what you're feeling. You try to sum it up in one sentence. What is the thought? And then you instantly right after write
a positive aspect or a spin
like
on it.
Spin it to make it positive or to make it not negative. It doesn't have to be positive necessarily, but change it so it's realistic and positive.
Yeah.
So just doing that at first, like I said, it's super annoying because you're literally constantly writing in it. I was writing in it every 10 minutes. And at some point I was like, okay, I'm not going to keep writing in it, but I'm so glad that I did because every single time you automatically start to change the thought in your head after a certain time. Yeah. So then you no longer have to write it down because you instantly, your brain makes this switch where it's like, oh, this is the negative thought. I'm going to let it be there. It's fine that it's there, but let's spin it and make it positive. And you do it without writing it down. But you also, what was really helpful is that you also see a pattern. Oh, this time of day, I tend to be really anxious because I tend to always write something or write more in here between 9 and 11 a.m. And then you can start to expect it. You can start to anticipate, okay, it's 8:30. This is around the time I'm going to start feeling anxious. And you can, being aware of it helps you to not be anxious. And it was like so fucking helpful. And I've gotten so good at being able to change those thoughts in my head where I haven't written anything down in years. I did that for a summer. I
mean, that's a very good tool to rewire your brain and to rewire those thoughts. I think that helps me a lot is just simply saying it's just anxiety, to put a label on the thing, because once you do that, you label it at that, and it instantly, at least for me, becomes bearable. And I tend to just, get on with everything without
I think that's
to
probably
think about it.
particularly helpful with health anxiety.
I
I don't know if you feel that it's also helpful for generalized anxiety, but I feel like for
not.
health anxiety, that's super
The thing
helpful.
is, you don't have to label it like that. You can label it as anything, but just making it that puts it under an umbrella in the sense of, okay, this is just that. It's not the doom and gloom or the big problem that my head makes it seem. And with anxiety in general, you tend to not live in the now.
Yeah.
And that's a thing too, where you can
You tend to live in the future, in the what if.
in something that you can control.
Yeah.
And something that is very helpful or can be very helpful is also the grounding aspect of just simply, for example, feel something. For example, just take off your shoes and socks and just go into the garden and into the yard and grass and feel things. Actually listen, see things that are actually there. And you can also, count them in your head. You see like a bird flying in the sky and stuff like that. Just actually ground yourself in the now.
There are also breathing exercises
Right.
for when
Just
you're
deep
feeling
breathing.
like a panic attack coming on, or even just when you're anxious.
Yeah.
There are breathing exercises. There's yoga. There's meditation. There are so many things that people can do. I know yoga was really helpful for me as well to kind of like come down.
Yeah.
But
a thing I wanted to add here is that with depression, mental health stuff, obviously it's a lot of work. It's a lot of mental work. It's a lot of time and effort and energy you have to put into that to make, first of all, to survive the day, and second, to function. And a lot of people are very tired, obviously, during those phases, because you need so much energy to just do the, first of all, bare minimum that you have to do, like work or shower or make food or something. But at the same time, you're constantly in your head of dealing with all those thoughts and feelings. And you just have to remind yourself that in those phases, you are tired because you are surviving every fucking day, every moment during the day, which is normal, but it also will change. And that's something that helped me a lot too. Those moments where you feel like you're stuck in a loop with thoughts and stuff, they always go. It's not permanent. It's not a permanent thing.
well, and also it can't hurt you. And I think that was also big for you too, to be able to tell yourself, like, my thoughts can't hurt me.
Yeah.
I think it's important. An important aspect of the whole thing is to be aware, because I think anybody going through dealing with anxiety or recognizing anxiety for the first time is also, you get really, really excited when you're not anxious.
Yeah.
Like you're so like and it feels like it's all of a sudden. It doesn't really feel like it's a gradual thing. It feels like all of a sudden, oh, I'm not anxious. And you just like recognize, oh, I'm not anxious anymore.
Yeah.
Or you don't recognize it until it comes back. And I think that's the thing that's so important to remember, is that it will come back. And that's not to say that you did something wrong, or that, you fucked up or whatever. It's normal. And I remember the first time when I first started to really feel good again, and I had like 4 or 5 solid weeks where I was just like good. I didn't feel anxious. I wasn't, nothing. I felt totally fine. And then all of a sudden it hit me like a fucking ton of bricks.
It's a wave, yeah.
And I was like, fuck. I was like, I thought I was past this. And then you have a really hard time dealing with it, because you just feel like you failed somehow. Like you feel like, okay, I thought I had this under control. But it's important to remember it comes in waves, like you said. And every time it comes back, it feels so much worse and so much heavier, because you haven't felt it in a while.
Right. And I think that's also a good sign. Also, I think I know that it's a good sign. If it comes in waves, you will recognize that the periods of your being fine and being being fine and being not affected by it and living your life normally are becoming longer.
Yeah, those periods get so much longer.
And
those chunks of time.
even if it's just 2 days and then it's 3 days and then it's 4 days, you see that there is progress and that's actually the right direction.
Yeah.
Once you're there, you're heading the right direction. It's work, but it's not that much work. It's a little bit of work.
It's just it's being dedicated to doing it. And
Right.
if you're, which is hard when you're so anxious, because a lot of times, like you sometimes are, when you're feeling anxious or depressed, you don't have motivation, you don't have drive, you don't have this thing to like help you. Okay, I'm gonna do this today, and we're gonna stick with this plan. So it is hard. In the beginning, it's really hard to find the motivation to try to get rid of your anxiety or learn about it, but it's worth it. And even if it's just a little bit every day, no one's saying that you have to 24/7 be working on your anxiety.
Yeah.
But try to do just like one thing a day. Like, okay, I'm going to, like the journal thing, I'm just going to, every time I have a thought, I'm just going to write it down. Yeah. Or I'm just going to tell myself every time I have a thought, it's just anxiety.
There are so many ways and things you can do to get over this. I mean, obviously I'm a fan of therapy.
Me too.
And I mean, I'm not saying that a therapist alone can help you change everything in your life. Obviously, they give you a lot of tools, which you have to then practice and involve in your daily life. But there are a lot of things that they can help you see from a different perspective. And sometimes that's just the best thing to see and do, because we get so involved in our routines and stuff that maybe we see that, maybe a small thing that we can change helps us with dealing with our mental health. And I think if you look at the statistics in the Western countries, that a lot of younger people are dealing with mental health stuff because of all the shit that's been going on through the last 3-4 years now, with COVID and now the war and inflation and just the doom and gloom of climate change and how fast everything is happening. To keep your mental health sane and proper is key to not only surviving but also maybe making something out of the doomy future that we might look at.
And I think it's important to we say it all the time, I know, but there's no shame in therapy, like none. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself. And I think there are some things, like even if you have a partner or family or friends or whatever, I think there is just some things that are easier to talk about with somebody who doesn't know you.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I, for example, have a client that I do Reiki with that has come a couple of times to a Reiki session, and he's in his late 50s. And therapy in Austria is very like hush hush. It's still very, I think it's getting a little better, but men especially don't do therapy. That's just not a thing, and you don't talk about it. But he started therapy because he's been having anxiety, and he doesn't call it anxiety, but I call it anxiety because just from what he says, I'm like, that's anxiety. And he told me today that he's started therapy, and that he feels like it's really hard for him because being a man is one part of it. He's been suffering from some pretty severe agoraphobia, which is like fear of crowded spaces or fear of, being like trapped somewhere. And they had to like cancel a vacation last year because he couldn't bring himself to get on the plane. Just a lot of things that he's struggling with. And he said, it's really hard. My wife and I have been together for so long and I can't talk to her about it.
I still have those problems where I feel like I want to say something, but I just can't bring myself to actually say the words. Yeah.
And he said it's nothing about the relationship because they're totally solid.
Yeah.
But it's just he can't bring himself to talk about it. And he's like, therapy has been such a like relief basically because he's able to talk to somebody where he doesn't like have those barriers up. He doesn't, because it's who cares what this person thinks about me, and that's their job. And
I mean, a big thing is also, talking about this obviously, but you can also just, if you can't bring yourself to do therapy yet, you can also go online. There are a lot of forums, there are a lot of platforms, even just under YouTube videos, you can find the right people to talk about it. When I published my anxiety video, there's so many comments and so many people who feel the same thing, and Facebook groups, etc. There's so many ways to just get the things out there and maybe get to talk to someone who feels the same.
There's also like online support groups that like meet over Zoom or, you know, whatever, just like AA basically, but it's group therapy.
Just talking about it helps tremendously to just, first of all, unload all the heaviness, the emotions, the feelings, but at the same time, see that there are so many people who exactly feel the same thing, to not feel alone and to see, okay, it might not be normal, but at the same time, it's not unnormal to feel like this.
Yeah.
I will put the other similar episodes in the description if you want to revisit them, especially the health and relationship anxiety episodes. They're pretty good, I think. And
they're very old episodes, so
episodes.
They might not have the best flow. I don't remember.
I remember them being pretty good, but I think the value and the thing that we say are still important and hold up. And
there's also a book which we've linked before, which we will link again.
The Joshua Fletcher book.
It's a great book, and it's very, very easy read. It took me like 2 hours to read it, and I'm a slow reader.
Super short,
but that like jump started my journey of dealing with my anxiety and learning about my anxiety.
It's a good start to just understand what anxiety is, and
that's where I got the journaling thing. He talks about that, and that was a total game changer for me. So we'll link that as well.
It's getting dark.
It is getting dark.
It's time to stop. Listen, everybody, if you like what you hear, please.
By dark, he doesn't mean that the mood's getting dark. He means it's physically getting dark.
It's getting dark. Please subscribe. Please hit the subscribe button. Please follow us everywhere where you can follow us. You can look us up on Instagram. We talk about there with people if you want to have a talk, questions, whatever.
You can always reach out.
If you want to really support us because you feel like we're doing a good job, or if you just like what you hear, you can head over to our Patreon, where Joe is currently waiting for other members. Hey, Joe, thanks for supporting us.
Hey, Joe.
Right. And that's it. Until next week.
Goodbye. Watch out for deer.